Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to talk about top 10 wrestling matches of all time. One. Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker, WrestleMania 25. If any match has crossed over to that emotional realm in wrestling circles lately, it's undoubtedly the epic bout between Shawn Michaels the Heartbreak Kid, HBK, Mr. WrestleMania, and The Undertaker, the legendary Deadman, the Phenom, Mark Calloway, at 2009's WrestleMania 25. While WrestleMania 25 was a truly woeful event, dragging out the same plodding thug-like dullards to bang into each other for the main titles in uninspired storylines, and providing perhaps the single most degrading moment in the history of women's wrestling. No mean feat for the misogynistic WWE, it was saved almost solely by this performance from two certified legends of the art. In fact, you'll find fans who'll admit to having tears lurking behind their eyes watching these two iconic, often considered over-the-hill performers steal the show with an amazing mix of careful suspense, emotional storytelling and extraordinary feats of athletic ability. The actual blow-by-blow details of the match have been documented endlessly online. What's more interesting for the less familiar wrestling observer is the way that the match highlights so many of the deficiencies in the commonly accepted understanding of what a wrestling bout actually is.
2. Stone Cold vs. The Rock, WrestleMania 17 2001.
The match was fast and furious with both men connecting and reversing signature moves on the other. Though the crowd had been treated to the greatest WrestleMania and arguably the greatest PPV of all time, and though they had showered the event with cheers and boos where appropriate, they had saved enough of themselves to give the main event a crowd befitting such a spectacle. Ross was in great form and played off Paul Heyman, whose thick and gruff accent sometimes could grate solidly. The story of the match was twofold. First, Rock was not the same man he was 2 years prior. Everything Austin threw at him, Rock had a counter, a reversal, a kick out, a block, something. Second, everything Rock withstood only angered Austin more and more. Toward the end of the match, Stone Cold was busting out rock bottoms and million-dollar dreams, but still, Rock refused to give up. As the match wore on, the challenger seemed to become more and more desperate. And then Vince McMahon appeared. It doesn't matter that the follow-up was a letdown. What matters is the story told with this main event. The story was a desperate challenger doing everything he could to win the match, being so insecure before the match ever started that he made a deal with the devil himself to ensure his victory, and then, with victory achieved, shook hands with that devil in triumph. That story, played out on that stage, between those two primary actors, at the absolute peak of not only their popularity but the popularity of their medium around them, makes this the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. 3. CM Punk vs. John Cena, Money in the Bank 2011. In 2011, on a hot July night, CM Punk challenged the WWE champion John Cena in a match that, to be frank, was the best I have ever seen and might be the best of all time. The drama of the moment, the emotion of the Allstate Arena crowd and the audaciously brilliant conclusion will leave its mark in the annals of professional wrestling history. It was as good as any Shawn Michaels match. It was as grand as any Steve Austin angle. The final match was for the WWE Championship between champion John Cena and CM Punk. WWE Chairman Vince McMahon had threatened to have Cena fired if Punk won. During the match, two separate signature attitude adjustment moves by Cena failed to score the victory. More than 30 minutes into the match, Punk performed his go-to-sleep maneuver, striking Cena's ribs and causing Cena to fall out of the ring. As Punk rolled Cena back into the ring, McMahon and John Laurinaitis emerged from backstage and distracted Punk, resulting in Cena placing Punk in the STF submission hold. Punk did not submit, but McMahon signaled the referee to award Cena the match and sent Laurinaitis to ring the bell. This was reminiscent of the Montreal Screwjob in 1997, where a conspiracy orchestrated by McMahon led to Bret Hart losing his WWF Championship to Shawn Michaels by submission despite Hart never submitting. Not wanting a tainted victory, Cena broke the hold and attacked Laurinaitis. As Cena returned to the ring, Punk performed a go-to-sleep on Cena and pinned him to win the WWE Championship. McMahon ordered the winner of the Raw Money in the Bank match, Alberto Del Rio, to cash in his contract on Punk. When Del Rio ran out and tried to cash in his contract for an immediate WWE Championship match, Punk performed a roundhouse kick on Del Rio before he could do so. After blowing a kiss to a distraught McMahon, Punk fled the arena and left as WWE Champion. 4. Triple H vs Undertaker Hell in a Cell, WrestleMania 28. The first main event match was a Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and The Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as special guest referee, billed as the end of an era. The match started with the two going back and forth. The match moved to the outside where The Undertaker dominated. Back in the ring, Triple H assaulted Undertaker with the steel steps and even countered a Hell's Gate. The match intensified when Triple H brought steel chairs and a sledgehammer into the ring. After multiple big moves and weapon shots on each other, the two men repeatedly kicked out. After suffering multiple pedigrees, a sweet chin music, and multiple chair and sledgehammer shots, Undertaker came back and executed a tombstone piledriver. However, Triple H kicked out. Triple H delivered one more pedigree before The Undertaker kicked out, took back control, performed another tombstone, and won the match to extend his undefeated streak to 20-0. After the match, Undertaker and Michaels helped Triple H out of the ring and made it to the entrance stage, where they embraced. 5. The Undertaker vs Mankind, Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring 1998. Hell in a Cell. Mankind and The Undertaker. Mankind made his way to the ring. He tossed a chair to the top of the cell and climbed up to the top. What the heck was going on? Next, the lights went down and Undertaker slowly made his way towards the cell. He would follow Mankind to the top. The two began to brawl. A chair shot to Undertaker. They began walking across the cage and the cage gave way. I thought they were going to fall through. What came next continues to live in infamy of wrestling lore. Undertaker threw Mankind from the top of the cage, 16 feet through the Spanish announce table. Everyone was stunned. A man soaring off of a cage and crashing through a table. The medics came out. Vince came out to check on Mankind. This match was over. They put him on a stretcher and began to roll him away from the ring. Mankind was done. There was no way he was getting up. Then everything froze in the aisle. There was a stir. All of a sudden, a deafening roar overtook the arena. Everyone shouted, "How the hell is this guy standing?" All of a sudden, Mankind was climbing back up the cage. The match was back on. Mankind then got destroyed again, in the form of being chokeslammed through the cage. He crashed into the ring below and the medics were back tending to Mankind. However, he rose up once again. The two battled it out. Mankind would pull a bag from under the ring. He poured something shiny into the ring. We had no clue what it was, until it filtered through the crowd that he was using thumbtacks. After being slammed into the bed of thumbtacks twice, the match was over and everyone was in total awe. 6. Bret Hart vs Steve Austin, submission match, WrestleMania 13 1997. WrestleMania 13 was the 13th annual WrestleMania professional wrestling pay-per-view event produced by the World Wrestling Federation, WWF. The fifth match was a no disqualification submission match between Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. UFC fighter Ken Shamrock was the special guest referee for this match. Austin attacked Hart, who was still in his entrance attire. The two first beat each other in the ring before the action spilled outside the ring. Hart tossed Austin into the steel ring post while Austin drove him onto the steel barrier. The two men began fighting in the crowd, where both men hit each other with several foreign objects. They moved up the steps high into the crowd. Shamrock followed them and brought them back towards the ring where Austin used steel steps on Hart to humiliate him. As the action began in the ring, Hart focused on Austin's leg. He busted Austin open with the timekeeper's table and Austin's head began to bleed. Hart tried to use a steel chair on Austin's leg, but Austin choked Hart with a television cable. Hart hit Austin in the head with the ring bell. He applied the sharpshooter on Austin, who did not submit and tried to resist but passed out from the pain and loss of blood. Shamrock awarded the match to Hart, but Hart continued to attack Austin, which led to a double turn as the fans turned on Hart and began cheering for Austin. Shamrock suplexed Hart off of Austin and physically challenged him to a fight. Hart declined to fight Shamrock and left the ring to a chorus of boos. Austin, meanwhile, after regaining consciousness, hit a stunner on a referee when he tried to help Austin out, then slowly limped away to backstage, while the crowd chanted his name. 7. Undertaker vs. Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 26. The match was billed as Streak vs. Career and pitted Shawn Michaels against The Undertaker. The match started out with both men executing their signature moves early on. The Undertaker injured his leg while performing Old School and Shawn focused on his leg. The action then went outside the ring. An instance included where Undertaker executed the Tombstone Piledriver on the stadium floor, but Michaels kicked out when Undertaker tried to pin him in the ring. Afterwards in the match, Michaels executed a Sweet Chin Music. Soon after, Undertaker also executed the chokeslam and the last ride successfully, but Michaels kicked out of each. Shawn also applied numerous submission maneuvers on Undertaker's injured ankle, such as the ankle lock, figure 4 leg lock, and crossface, but The Undertaker was successful in countering all of them. Undertaker also applied the Hell's Gate, but Michaels reversed it into a pin attempt, with Undertaker kicking for a 2 count. When the action spilled outside again, Undertaker attempted a last ride on the announce table, but Michaels countered it and executed a second Sweet Chin Music, which placed The Undertaker on top of the announce table. Michaels performed a moonsault aiming on The Undertaker's injured ankle through the announce table. After taking The Undertaker back in the ring again, Michaels then executed his third Sweet Chin Music on Undertaker, who kicked out at 2 yet again. Michaels then attempted Sweet Chin Music again, but Undertaker countered into a chokeslam, and quickly followed up by executing a second Tombstone Piledriver. But Michaels kicked out at the count of 2. Undertaker began to signal the end for Michaels, but stopped his cutthroat action and told Michaels to stay down. Michaels, however, taunted Undertaker by completing the action on his own and slapping him in the face. Then Undertaker responded with a third jumping Tombstone Piledriver and pinned the fallen Shawn Michaels for the win, and extended his undefeated streak at WrestleMania to 18-0, ending Michaels' career. After the match the two shook hands and embraced. Undertaker soon left and Shawn Michaels interacted with the fans for the final time as the event came to a close. 8. Edge vs. John Cena, TLC, Unforgiven 2006. In the main event, Edge faced John Cena in a tables, ladders, and chairs match for the WWE Championship. The match stipulation added that if Cena lost to Edge, Cena would move to SmackDown. At the start, Cena took the advantage over Edge. Edge, however, countered Cena's moves with a neckbreaker. The match saw Cena sandwich Edge in a ladder as he applied the STFU on Edge, to which Edge submitted. At one point, Cena began to climb the ladder, as he was moments away from retrieving the title. Lita, who interfered on Edge's behalf, tipped the ladder over, making Cena fall off the ladder through a table at ringside. Lita's interference was short, as Cena would later recover, and as Edge was climbing the ladder, Lita hit Cena with a steel chair to the back, only for him to inadvertently fall towards and push the ladder, making Edge fall off the ladder through a table at ringside. Lita then received an FU off Cena. Cena then began to make his way up the ladder, as did Edge when he re-entered the ring. The two fought until Cena performed an FU off the ladder through 2 tables that were stacked on Edge. Cena then grabbed the belt to win the title for a 3rd time. 9. Triple H vs. Kurt Angle vs. Rikishi vs. The Rock vs. The Undertaker vs. Steve Austin, Hell in a Cell, Armageddon 2000. The main event match was a 6-man Hell in a Cell match for Kurt Angle's WWF Championship. The challengers were The Undertaker, The Rock, Triple H, Rikishi, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. The early portion of the match saw several pinfall attempts by all participants. During this time, Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, and Gerald Briscoe were working together to stop the match by attempting to demolish the cell with a truck. They had just torn down the cell door when WWF Commissioner Mick Foley ordered the trio to allow the match to run its course. The trio ignored Foley, and the commissioner sent the police to escort McMahon out of the arena as he fought Patterson and Briscoe. As a result of the missing door, everyone involved in the match exited the cell and started climbing to the top of the structure. As Rikishi was fighting off both Angle and The Undertaker chokeslammed Rikishi off the cell and into the pine chip-filled bed of the truck used by McMahon. Austin and Rock had a stare down inside the cell and traded blows. Rock delivered the spine buster on Austin, but was clotheslined by HHH before he could execute his signature People's Elbow on Austin. The Rock punched Triple H out of the ring and nailed the Rock's bottom on Angle. Stone Cold recovered to stop the count and hit a stunner on the Rock, but Triple H broke up the pin and received a neck breaker from Austin. Angle snuck on top of the Rock and pinned him to retain his WWF Championship, only to receive a stunner from Austin. 10. Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels, Iron Man match WrestleMania 12. The main event at WWF WrestleMania 12 was built on two goals from two different wrestlers. Bret Hart, the then WWF champion, aimed at wanting to retain the WWF Championship, and the challenger Shawn Michaels, who had suffered a number of setbacks over the course of the previous year, losing a title match at WrestleMania 11, forfeiting the Intercontinental Championship, suffering a concussion, and getting betrayed by Diesel, aka Kevin Nash. To add to the build-up of this event, the match between Hart and Michaels would be the first televised, 60-minute Iron Man match, in which whomever scored the most decisions in a 1-hour period, pinfall, submission, countout or disqualification, would win the match, and the WWF Championship. Though the time limit for the match was set for 60 minutes, neither Michaels nor Hart was able to score a decision as time expired. Hart slapped on the sharpshooter in the final minute, but Michaels was able to gut it out until the time ran out. Since neither man scored a fall in the first 60 minutes, then WWF President Gorilla Monsoon ordered the match to continue under a one fall to the finish, sudden death rules. In the end, Shawn Michaels hit Bret Hart with his sweet chin music superkick and scored the pinfall 2 minutes into the overtime period to win the WWF Championship, finally realizing his boyhood dream. Out of the 3 times Shawn Michaels held the WWE Championship, it was in his first reign that became his most successful.